The letter trembled in his hands as he opened it. His name was written in gentle curves, the kind no boy would ever write. "Donald," it began. He didn't finish reading. The paper hit the fire before his tears could. She screamed, "That was mine, Dad." Her voice cracked, raw with fear and shame. The firelight flickered across her face. Levi shouted back, words he could never take back. "You're not my daughter, Jess. You're my son." The room went silent, except for the hiss of burning paper. "My name is Levi Baker. I'm 42, a refrigeration engineer in Oregon. People say I have steady hands, but they don't know what it means to hold on to something already dead. 13 years ago, I lost my boy, Harry. 3 years old. A car crash, a phone call, and a silence that swallowed the house whole. My wife, Emily, never recovered. She stopped eating, stopped sleeping, spoke only in whispers. Every night she called for Harry as if he might answer from the next room. When she became pregnant again, I prayed for a son. A second chance, a way to heal her. When the nurse said, 'It's a girl,' Emily wept. Not with joy, with grief. I looked at the tiny child in my arms and made a choice I thought was mercy. 'Welcome back, Harry,' I whispered. From that moment, Jess Baker ceased to exist. I cut her hair short, bought trucks, water guns, comic books. Never a doll, never a dress. I told neighbors we had a boy this time. Emily smiled again for the first time in years. That smile, so fragile, so desperate, made me believe the lie was worth it. I taught the child to stand like a boy, to speak like one, to hide the parts that didn't fit. When she looked at herself in the mirror, confusion flickered in her eyes, but she said nothing. She just nodded when I called her son. At night, I'd sit beside her crib, tracing the outline of a face that wasn't Harry's, but close enough to fool my heart. 'Welcome back,' I'd whisper. 'Daddy's been waiting for you.' And for a while, I believed it. But even then, deep inside the silence of our home, I knew the truth was still alive, breathing quietly beneath the name I had given her. She grew up believing she was a boy. Her small hands held toy soldiers, not dolls. Her laughter echoed through the yard in rough, practiced tones, the way I had taught her. 'Walk straighter,' I'd say. 'Speak firmly, Harry. Boys don't mumble.' And she would nod, obedient, eager to please me, unaware that every word I spoke was shaping a cage around her. Emily smiled more in those years. She baked again, painted the porch, even sang while doing dishes. When she looked at Harry, she saw hope. She saw life returning. And for a while, I let myself believe I'd saved her. But sometimes, I'd catch Jess staring into the mirror longer than she should. Her small fingers would trace her face, confused, curious. 'Dad,' she asked once, 'why don't I look like other boys?' I froze. The air went cold. 'You're just special,' I told her. 'That's all. Never forget. You're my son.' She smiled, small and unsure, and I felt the first crack inside me. One summer afternoon, she wandered to the neighbor's yard. I found her there, sitting cross-legged beside the neighbor's little girl, holding a plastic doll with golden hair. She was brushing it gently, humming under her breath. When she saw me, her eyes widened. 'Dad, look, she let me play!' The words never finished. My hand moved before my mind did. A sharp sound, then silence. The doll fell into the grass. She touched her cheek, not crying, just stunned. I heard myself shouting things I didn't mean. Or maybe I did. 'You're not supposed to touch that. You're a boy, do you understand?' Her lips trembled. 'I'm sorry, Dad. I just wanted to see what it felt like.' That night, I couldn't sleep. Emily lay beside me, peaceful for the first time in years. Down the hall, Jess was quiet. Too quiet. I stared at the ceiling, guilt crawling through me like frost. In the dark, I whispered to no one, to God, to myself. I just wanted to keep my wife alive. But I think I'm killing something else. She was 9 when the questions began. They always do, sooner or later. Quiet, harmless questions that grow teeth when you don't answer them. One afternoon, she came home from the neighbor's house, pale and trembling. I was fixing the old radiator when she stood in the doorway, her voice thin as paper. 'Dad, why does Lily's body look different from mine?' The wrench slipped from my hand. The sound echoed through the kitchen. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Emily was upstairs resting, and I knew I had no time to think, no space for the truth. I forced a smile. "You're special, remember? You're my boy. Just different from other boys. That's why we have to protect you." Her eyes searched mine, innocent but sharp in a way that scared me. "Protect me from what?" "From people who wouldn't understand," I said, my voice trembling even as I tried to make it sound firm. "You can't let anyone see you. Not when you change clothes, not ever. Promise me, Harry." She hesitated, then nodded. "I promise, Dad." I put my hand on her shoulder, too tightly, as if holding the lie in place. That night, she locked the bathroom door for the first time. She started changing in the dark, turning away from the mirror. And I stood outside, listening to the silence between us grow heavier with every passing day. Sometimes she'd look at me as if trying to read a language only I could understand, and when she smiled, it was smaller than before. I told myself I was keeping her safe, keeping Emily alive, keeping the world from breaking apart again. But deep inside, I knew what I was really doing. As long as she believed me, the truth stayed asleep. And I was the one standing guard at its grave. And they moved again that summer. Another quiet neighborhood, another fresh start built on false papers. Levi signed the enrollment form with a trembling hand. "Harry Hansen," he wrote, and when the clerk smiled politely, he almost believed it himself. He spent the night before the first day teaching her how to be what she wasn't. "Walk taller," he said. "Keep your hands out of your pockets, don't cross your legs. Boys don't do that." She nodded, repeating every gesture, every tone, until the lie sat neatly on her shoulders. At school, Jess, Harry, kept her head down. She spoke little, stayed on the edges of every group. When the teacher called for changing clothes in gym class, she froze. "I can't," she said softly. "Heart condition." The teacher blinked, concerned. "Do you have a note from your doctor?" She nodded quickly. Levi had already forged it, every detail rehearsed, every excuse prepared. She learned to survive between bells, alone, invisible. But then she met Donald. He sat beside her in English, always talking too much, telling jokes that didn't quite land. He made her laugh anyway, and for a moment Levi saw her through the glass of his truck window one afternoon, laughing, real and unguarded. Something inside him clenched. That evening he couldn't look at her the same way. "You're spending a lot of time with that boy," he said, keeping his tone steady. She shrugged. "He's my friend." He wanted to believe it was nothing, but he saw how she glowed when she said his name. Levi lay awake that night, listening to the house breathe. Emily slept peacefully down the hall. The girl, his son, dreamed behind a locked door. He thought of how easily the truth could wake, how one slip could destroy everything he had built to keep Harry alive. "I know she's changing," he whispered into the dark. "But I can't let it happen, because if she wakes, Harry dies again." He closed his eyes and prayed that morning would never come. He noticed the change long before she did. Donald's name began to appear in every story she told. A small smile lingered after every call. She wrote in her notebook more often, closing it quickly when he walked into the room. One evening, while cleaning the living room, he found a folded letter hidden between the pages of her book. The handwriting was careful, soft. His name wasn't there, but another boy's was, Donald. The words were trembling with tenderness, too honest, too alive. Levi read the first line and felt his chest tighten. The paper slipped from his fingers. For a moment, he stood frozen. Then, almost without thinking, he struck a match. The letter curled in flame, turning to ash before his guilt could catch up. She burst into the room. "Dad, what are you doing?" Her voice cracked. He stared at the fire. "This shouldn't exist. That was mine," she shouted, reaching toward the smoke. "You can't." "I can," he said, his voice breaking, "because you have to be strong, Harry. Your mother needs you." The light from the fire flickered on their faces, hers wet with tears, his locked in despair. For a moment, neither moved. Then she whispered, "I'm trying, Dad. I really am." He turned away before she could see his eyes. That night, he sat alone at the kitchen table, the smell of burnt paper still clinging to his hands. Her muffled sobs came from behind her door, quiet, steady, unbearable. He told himself he had done the right thing. He told himself love sometimes had to be cruel. But as the house fell silent, one truth echoed through him like a wound that would never close. He wasn't protecting her. He was burning what little of her still dared to feel alive. Emily's health began to fade like a light losing power. She moved slower, spoke less, and sometimes drifted into the past as if it were safer than the present. At night, Levi heard her whisper from the bedroom, calling softly, "Harry, come here." And Jess would freeze in the hallway, unsure whether to answer. He tried to manage everything, the medicine, the house, the lie, but the lie had its own pulse, beating louder each day. One afternoon, he found Emily sitting on the floor. Photo album open across her knees. Old pictures of Harry covered the rug. She was crying, fingers tracing the boy they had lost. Jess stood nearby, silent, her hands trembling. Emily looked up and whispered, "Harry, you were such a beautiful boy." Jess flinched. Levi rushed forward, helping his wife up. "It's all right, Em. You need to rest." She leaned against him, clutching the photo. "Harry, don't leave again," she murmured. When he came back, Jess was still there, tears on her face. The album lay open, her brother's face staring up between them like an accusation. Levi's voice turned cold. "You have to do better. She can't handle losing you again. Do you understand?" Jess said nothing. Her lips parted, but no words came, only quiet tears glistening in the dim light. She turned away, shoulders shaking. Later, when he tried to remember that moment, what haunted him most wasn't what he said. It was how she looked at him before turning away, a silent, wounded stare he would never see again. "I didn't know," he whispered years later, "that it was the last time she'd ever look at me that way." Jess stopped going to school. The excuses came first. Headaches, stomach pain, but Levi saw through them. Each morning she stayed in bed longer, her eyes empty, her voice flat. The spark that once made her laugh with Donald was gone. On the third day, someone knocked on the door. Donald stood outside, holding her backpack. "Is Harry home?" he asked, concern tightening his face. Levi hesitated, then stepped out, closing the door behind him. "He's not feeling well," he said. "You should go." Donald frowned. "Can I at least talk to him?" "No," Levi answered, sharper than he meant. "He doesn't need visitors." The boy hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Tell him I'll wait." Levi watched him leave, a dull ache spreading in his chest. Inside, the house was silent. He climbed the stairs and paused at her door. It was locked, but the sound of a pen scratching against paper slipped through the crack. That night, when she was asleep, he entered quietly. A notebook lay open on the desk, the ink still wet. The words caught his breath. "My name is Jess Baker." He traced the letters with trembling fingers. Each stroke felt like a heartbeat returning after years of silence. "She's still there," he whispered. "My daughter, she's still there." A sudden thud from down the hall broke the moment. He ran to the bedroom. Emily was on the floor, her breathing shallow, eyes unfocused. "Harry?" she murmured faintly, reaching toward the ceiling. "Don't leave me again." Levi lifted her onto the bed, panic rising with every second. He called her name, but she only smiled weakly, lost somewhere between memory and reality. When he turned back toward the doorway, Jess stood there, pale and silent, tears streaming down her face. He didn't move. Neither did she. For the first time, Levi saw not Harry, not a shadow, but the person he had buried beneath years of fear. And in that stillness, he understood how fragile every lie had become. One more heartbeat, and it would all shatter. Levi sat beside her bed long after the house went quiet. The notebook lay open between them, her name written again and again in uneven lines. Jess Baker. The sound of her breathing steadied him more than he expected. For the first time in years, he didn't know what to say. When she stirred, her eyes met his. There was no anger left, only exhaustion. He swallowed hard, voice trembling. "I'm sorry," he said. "For everything I made you carry, for turning you into someone you're not." She blinked, confused at first. Then her lips parted. "What did you just call me?" He took her hand. "Jess," he whispered. "Your name is Jess." The word hung between them like light breaking through a locked room. Her breath hitched and then she broke, not in pain, but in release. She leaned forward, sobbing against his chest, clutching him as if afraid he might vanish. He held her tight, his tears falling into her hair. In the next room, Emily stirred. Her voice, faint but clear, drifted through the doorway. Levi, was that her name? He turned to look at her. Emily was awake, eyes glassy yet calm. For a long moment, she studied the two of them, father and daughter, and a small, trembling smile appeared on her face. Jess, she whispered. She's beautiful. Levi nodded, unable to speak. The morning light crept across the room, warm and new. For the first time there were no shadows, no ghosts, only the three of them, broken but finally real. In his heart, Levi knew he couldn't undo what he had done. But he could start again. He brushed a strand of hair from Jess's face and said softly, "You don't have to be anyone else anymore. Just stay. Just live." And as Emily's eyes closed again, peace returning to her fragile body, Jess's hand tightened around his. Levi whispered the truth he had buried for too long, not a prayer, not a plea, just a promise. "You're my daughter, and this time, I'll keep you."